going to instead cross straight live to the White House. Joe Biden, the US president, just starting to speak about what's been unfolding on those university campuses.
The first is the right to free speech and for people to peacefully assemble and make their voices heard. The second is the rule of law. Both must be upheld. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent. The American people are heard. In fact, peaceful protest is in the best tradition of how Americans respond to consequential issues. But neither are we a lawless country. We are a civil society, and order must prevail. Throughout our history, we've often faced moments like this because we are a big, diverse, free-thinking, and freedom-loving nation. In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points. But this isn't a moment for politics. It's a moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education. Look, it's basically a matter of fairness. It's a matter of what's right. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. People have the right to get an education, the right to get a degree, the right to walk across the campus safely without fear of being attacked. But let's be clear about this as well. There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti-Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. It's simply wrong. There's no place for racism in America. It's all wrong. It's un-American. I understand people have strong feelings and deep convictions. In America, we respect the right and protect the right for them to express that. But it doesn't mean anything goes. It needs to be done without violence, without destruction, without hate, and within the law. You know, make no mistake, as president, I will always defend free speech, and I will always be just as strong in standing up for the rule of law. That's my responsibility to you, the American people, and my obligation to the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, have the protests forced you to reconsider any of the policies with regard to the region?
No. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you think the National Guard should intervene?
No.
Mr. President,
Do you agree with what the students are calling for?
Mr. President, the former president said that he was...
President Joe Biden speaking live there at the White House following a number of raids on university campuses over pro-Gaza protests. Joe Biden saying that students have a right to protest, but not, he says, cause chaos. Listening to that with me, Douglas Herbert, our foreign affairs commentator. What do you make of the language there from Biden?
Well, first of all, it was relatively short. As you could see, he really didn't take any questions, wanted to get away relatively quickly. And he said the piece, there was no, breakthrough in his comments there, nothing that would jaw-dropping. He basically was threading the needle we were talking about earlier, basically saying that as president, he will always uphold free speech, and that is obviously enshrined in the First Amendment, that right to free speech, to express yourself. But he was equally adamant about that. I have this countervailing responsibility as president to uphold the rule of law. Rule of law, obviously, is also, the campaign slogan, if you will, of a lot of the political forces in the country to the right of him. Donald Trump, basically said in the past 24 hours, he said that watching those police move in and break up those protests is a beautiful thing to watch. Those were his words. So very much whipping up this sentiment of law and order, away from chaos. So you could see Biden basically walking a tightrope here. He was walking that tightrope between trying to basically concede that, yes, you have a right to express yourself, but as he said right at the outset, there is no place in the U.S. Constitution, there is no right right enshrined in U.S. democracy to violent protest. Yes, peaceful protest is very much protected. That's the line. Now, the question here, obviously, is he had been under enormous pressure to say something. There had been, competing, vying influences on the progressive wing of his party. They think that he hasn't taken a strong enough stand against Israel and come down hard enough on Netanyahu, and also in favor of these protests. But then there was an equal uprising and hue and cry, if you will, among a lot of people to the right of him, basically saying that he had to become firmer, stand much more firmer against protests that a lot of people saw as nothing short of just outright violence and disruption and chaos at American universities that was preventing a lot of students, well, beyond making a lot of students feel unsafe and threatened and unable to just peacefully go to class, was disrupting their ability to pursue their studies. So that is the extremely fine balance. Biden obviously at risk of, and his campaign strategists very much afraid that the coalition that helped bring him to power and get him elected, that youth coalition, the 18 to 24-year-olds, you could push it a little more to 30 to 35-year-olds, that coalition is at risk of crumbling largely because of this issue. Will it go away in the next few weeks? Will it fizzle out as the university campuses disperse, as the students leave on their summer holidays, the commencements, the graduations are coming up. Columbia's is on May 15th. That's perhaps the hope in the White House. Then you have the fall term. It will be a whole new thing. By then, we'll have a whole new calculus, perhaps, for this Middle East conflict. That's what they're banking on. But right now, the pressure couldn't be greater on a Biden administration that has been seen by many as not forceful enough in speaking out for one side or for the other. That's why it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of situation for him.